Hi everyone, my name's Mel. Welcome back to my bookshelf and welcome to 2021. It is a pleasure to be here, finally. But as crappy as 2020 was, for me it was a pretty good reading year. I managed to get quite a few books read considering how busy I was in my normal life. So I've painstakingly gone through every single book that I've read in 2020 and made a top 10 my favourite books of 2020. Now, these aren't books that were released in 2020 necessarily, but books that I read in 2020. And there's a big mix of genres in this list, anything from romance to sci-fi. So without further ado, here are my top 10 reads of 2020. So first up, I wanted to give an honourable mention to Jurassic Park, which just slips out of my top 10, but was a fantastic read. I had never even considered reading this, to be honest, until Media Death Cult did a group read. So I joined the group read, I read it, and I tell ya, it was really good. It was even better than the movie, and that's saying something because that was a damn good movie. There was so much action, there was so much adventure, there was so much more blood and guts than in the movie. And by guts, I really mean guts, like literally guts everywhere. Coming in at number 10 was a book I read on my Kindle. It was called Poison Study by Maria V. Schneider. This was the first book I've ever read of Maria Schneider's, and I must say, I adored it. I thought the writing was just beautiful. I thought the story was wonderful. So this book is based around a character called Yelena, who's taken off the death penalty, and she's made into the commander's poison taster, so food taster. So she tastes all the food before the commander eats it, and if she dies, he doesn't eat it. She herself is poisoned by the commander's chief of security, and she's given the antidote every day. So if she flees or runs away, she'll die. And then she comes across this conspiracy plot, and it delves into her past and why she was convicted in the first place. And it was just a really fun read. I was really not expecting it to be as good as it was, and that's why it's my number 10. Number 9, sticking with the romance theme, but not a fantasy this one, is The Simple Wild. When you're in the mood for a romance, you want a good romance, and that's what this one was, by K.A. Tucker. So Kalla's mother left her father and Alaska when Kalla was a baby, and so she never really got to know her father. But when she finds out that he's dying, she hops on a plane to Alaska to meet him and to develop a relationship with him before he goes. Her father, Ren, owns a transport company, like a flight company, and Jonah, one of the pilots, and her clash big time. They pretty much hate each other, but then of course it's a romance, so the hate turns to not so much hate, and the not so much hate turns to like, and the like turns to something else. And it was just a really delightful story. It was a really good hate to love story. However, Jonah was an asshole. I don't care about the reviews that say how wonderful he is. He's not. He's an asshole. But I liked the book. Coming in at number 8 is Jade War, which is the second of the Greenbone saga, which is yet to be finished, but the first 2 books were amazing. So I should really make it the Greenbone saga as both books in one, but number 2 was definitely better than number 1. They were a lot of fun. 2 rival clans fight it out for magical jade in this urban fantasy by Fonda Lee. And if you're after more info on this series, I've done a video which I'll link in the description below about some reasons why I think you should read the Greenbone saga. So number 7, Dune by Frank Herbert. The book was the last one I read in 2020, so I'm glad I'm late doing my end of year list, or else this one might not have made it on it. I'm sure you're aware is the number 1 highest selling sci-fi in the world, and there's a reason for it. It was really good. And with the movie coming out this year now, perfect time to get on it. I did do an in-depth review of this one. I'll link it in the description. Number 6, Thriller Territory. Now, I didn't actually read many thrillers in 2020 for some reason. I was more into the fantasy sci-fi, but I did read one thriller that stood out enough to go on this list, and that was His and Hers. Now, His and Hers is by one of my favourite thriller authors, Alice Feeney, who also wrote Sometimes I Lie, which I really loved. It was very twisted, as was this one. So Anna is a TV news host. Jack is a police investigator, and they have to work together to investigate the murder of one of their childhood friends. There are so many twists and turns in this book. As soon as you think it's going one way, it totally derails you and goes a complete other way. and I had no idea what was going on, and I loved it. It was fantastic. The story is told from both their perspectives, and they're both such unreliable narrators that you don't have a clue what's going on. It was great. Number 5, The Winter King. Now, I'm almost embarrassed to put this one on the list purely because of the cover. This cover. You look at it and you think, something my nan read back in the 70s, some lame romance book that you buy at a service station on your way through driving through town that's $2 and just gets thrown in the back seat of the car. But, credit where credit's due. This book was amazing. I almost didn't pick it up because of the cover, but I read some reviews and I really tossed and turned about giving it a go, but I am so glad that I did because it was one of the best reads of the year. But that cover, so Kamsin is a princess and she is given away to Winter, who's a rival of her father's, as a bride. I really don't want to say anything more about the plot or the book because I don't want to spoil it, but he doesn't exactly get what he expects from Kamsin. So many awesome things happen in this book, so many twists and turns. It's got such a plot. I devoured this book in less than 2 days. Like I absolutely loved it. The cover just does not do the book justice. It was just so good, and I just really feel that it might reach more people if it had a different cover. So just a warning, this book is really raunchy in some places, well, a lot of places actually, and so take it from me, try not to have it on autoplay in the car when you're taking your dad to the shops, because that is one of life's awkward conversations that you can do without. Awesome book, terrible cover, awesome book. I'm really sorry, Ms. Wilson. Number 4 is A Dance with Fate. So Juliet Marillier is one of my all-time favourite authors. She wrote the Seven Waters series, which starts with Daughter of the Forest, which is probably my favourite book of all time. So luckily I got an advance copy of this one and it blew me away. So it's the second instalment in Marillier's latest series, The Warrior Bards. It was even better than the first one. So it continues on the journey of Dao and, I'm not going to pronounce this correctly, Lieben? Anyway, she fights him in a duel and he loses his sight, and then they both have to go back to his family's estate, and his family are awful. It is such a good read, and in typical Marillier style, the romance is a very slow burn, but it's ultimately brilliant. It's a brilliant mix of Celtic fantasy, action, romance, magic. I just loved it. I will read anything this woman writes. Number 3, into sci-fi territory now with House of Suns by Alistair Reynolds. So I've only just discovered this author, but I am so glad because he's got a lot of books for me to get through, and I'm very excited, and I'm sure that you're going to see him hopefully on this year's list as well. It's really difficult to describe what this book's about. So a woman named Abigail makes clones of herself. Now they're not all in her image. There's male, female, different personality traits, different physical features, but she sends them all out into the galaxy to explore, gather data, and they come back every couple of 100,000 years and they share their experiences with each other, and then they go off again. Now 2 of these clones have formed a relationship which is frowned upon, and they're running late to this reunion. Their lateness, amongst other things, causes huge things to happen, and it's just a space opera on a massive scale. Action, adventure, sci-fi with so much to take in, but the way that Alistair Reynolds writes it, it's very easy, and it was very enjoyable, especially the audio version. Really thumbs up. Number 2, yes, I'm doing 2 by the same author in my top 3, and that is Pushing Ice. Now, I preferred Pushing Ice just a little bit more than House of Suns. I'm not sure exactly why. Maybe I gelled with the characters a bit more. So one of the moons of Saturn flies off into the distance. What is it? Nobody knows. Is it a spaceship? What is it? Why is it going away? So a comet mining ship called the Rockhopper is the closest ship to the moon that's flying away. So they get the rock hopper to pursue it. And I won't spoil exactly what happens once they start to pursue it, but it is such an amazing book with such a scope over so much time, and it was just so much fun, and it's got everything in it, and really fantastic sci-fi. Top notch, absolutely loved it. It's definitely well worth the read if you are into sci-fi, or even if you want to get into sci-fi but don't know where to start. Pushing Ice would be amazing. And I don't think my number one is going to come as a surprise to anyone who's seen my videos, but my number one read of 2020 was The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. Yes, another romantic fantasy, I know. So this one is based on Addie LaRue, and she makes a deal with a demon to live forever, but there is a big catch: nobody remembers her. So as soon as they leave the room, they forget her, and it's just about her life living through this curse with no one remembering her, how she deals with life, and how on earth is she going to fall in love when no one can remember who she is. And if you want to see an in-depth review of this, I've got a video I'll link in the comments below. I've seen a lot of negative reviews on this lately, and that's fair enough. Everyone's got their opinion, but I just found it so delightful. I just loved it. I'm still thinking about it months later, and this will definitely be one that I will read a lot in future. Well, that was my top 10 of 2020. It's always very hard narrowing it down. I hope you enjoyed this video, and hopefully you found something to add to your TBR if you haven't read them already. So take care, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks, bye.